without further ado, Dr. Weiss, if you are here, I know you are here. If you can turn on your camera and microphone, I would be happy to have you. Welcome as our first session.
Hi, Khan. Thank you for the comments.
I mean, we are quite happy that you actually made it today. As far as I know, you are going to present your own deck. So I just turned off my presentation, and let me just give you the stage, and maybe in 15 to 20 minutes, we will be back. And if we will have any questions, we will talk about it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Khan. Thank you for the introduction. Hello, everybody. Pleasure to tell you a little bit to a topic which is very dear to my heart, and obviously, it's something we do at Heal Capital as our core hypothesis. So yeah, great to get your attention and share some thoughts. And obviously, if there's any questions or thoughts, happy to answer them here in the chat or via LinkedIn or later on anything. But first of all, let me briefly start at Heal Capital. So what is it? What do we see in the market in terms of health tech, and why do we believe there is such an exciting opportunity? And that is essentially that we believe we have reached something what we call the end of digital health, right? It's the future where actually technology and healthcare at some point in time are somewhat merging and are not really to be differentiated anymore. So when it comes to health tech, from my point of view, digital health is nothing to be discussed anymore, such as we are not talking about Amazon or Google or anything as a digital company, right? This goes without saying. These guys are obviously fully digitally enabled and online, but have you, but it's not about the digital company. And this is what we are, from our thesis, actually are seeing and expecting to see in healthcare, that technology and healthcare are actually converging and becoming one and the same. And I guess not only because of the COVID pandemic, but for the whole development, we're seeing or witnessing the first results of that, that essentially we have seen for the last years some sort of a first wave of digital health for early adopters, with first apps where people really looking for digital solutions started to use step counters, Clue, any other sorts of early on first generation companies of health tech. And what we are now seeing is that this digitalization is getting ubiquitous and getting to all areas of healthcare. But what we are talking about is the second wave and not the last wave of healthcare. Why is that? Because it's essentially the digitalization of healthcare as we know it, right? So it puts actually all sorts of therapeutics, diagnostics, prevention and prediction. It puts it into a, well, digital world. If you think of Kuru or other telemedicine companies, it essentially puts doctor's consultations right in front of you with the video call. So there's not that much new to it. But that is just a question of timing. I guess what we see in the wave 3, or what we're about to see in this wave 3, which is the even more exciting part, saying, let's leverage digitalization, let's leverage data software to the full extent and actually redefine, as we know healthcare, as healthcare is not only being delivered, but come up with new sorts of therapies and new sorts of treatments. But when you look at this way, I mean, it's clear that why we are thinking this is one of the greatest investment opportunities out there, and we're doing it on a day-to-day basis. But eventually, it's also something tricky to do, because it doesn't only combine the opportunities of healthcare and technology, but also comes along with the challenges and the required knowledge of healthcare and technology. And that is what we are saying in a nutshell. What Heal Capital is, it's a investment, early stage, 100 million investment fund focused at this intersection of healthcare and technology. It's a dedicated investment strategy focused exclusively at this intersection of health and technology, mainly in Europe. And we are aiming to be a value-added platform, i.e. not only investing into money into these companies, but providing access, for example, via our LPs, which is essentially 22 private health insurers here in Germany, but also all sorts of payer-provider networks and, well, opinion leaders we can offer. And at the end of the day, we are, well, consider ourselves a founder ourselves in that sense that it's a new fund. We started this at the beginning of the year. We're working hard every day to really make our vision happen. and yeah, are doing everything we can to make our portfolio companies successful. But what does this have to do actually with telemedicine, VIMPROs, this weird term? And you know, when you think about that, companies out there, you see these gigantic, humongous financing rounds of billions into healthcare here, into telemedicine there. And you could think, hey, this thing is now solved, right? This is the end, all money has been spent, the platforms out there with who's and the like. But if you look at it one level deeper, yes, the winners of first wave of the telemedicines are emerging, but there's always still challenges. For example, if you look at the pure telemedicine plays, it's a huge land grab game. But the question in terms of unit economics with really razor thin margins in these games, if you compare customer acquisition costs and customer lifetime values, it's really a tough game. And then again, you know, via the current telemedicine treatments and calls, there is relatively little actually which can be done medically. And if you think about innovative therapeutics and digital therapeutics, which particularly here in Germany is a huge thing, which this new regulation changes, that's really fascinating and really cool. But big questions like, you know, how is the go-to-market actually solved or remain completely unanswered? And then you see all these e-commerce, e-pharmacy type of companies, which offer really large-scale access to drugs, as you would know them from the pharmacy. But again, it's pretty much a e-commerce game. And there is a question about to what extent do these e-pharmacies also ensure that there's long-term value because of adherence, because of the need for multimodal therapies. So all you can see, yes, there is huge developments and huge trends and great companies, but there is still significant challenges and they're not easily answered. And that is what we see is like leading to the next development. And as so often, I guess the US is leading the path here and leading the pack, that there is something what we call vertically integrated micro providers. So what is that? It's companies who actually own the full value chain from diagnostic to therapeutic to, well, the adherence, monitoring, and so on and so forth. They mostly comprehensively address a particular need. So it's not the general healthcare solution, but they focus on topics like acne or mental health or allergies and other ones. And they are themselves providers. So it's not that they just sell something or they offer a telemedicine platform, but actually they do offer end-to-end high quality care, almost as an alternative care provider. And that is something which we consider super attractive from all perspectives, right? It's delivering superior care for the patients. It's addressing several of the challenges which we see described briefly in the call in the beginning. And it's often addressing really unmet needs. And at the same time, having the beauty through covering the full patient journey, it's untapping significant value pools. And that is obviously always attractive company building wise. And one of the key questions or guiding questions is that how would you actually build a healthcare product if Apple or Facebook or pick any consumer focused company out there, if they would do it? How would they actually come up with a perfect user experience, with a perfect patient journey to truly say, if I want to offer the world's best product, how would I do it, right? And typically, if you look here at the left hand of the slide, the typical patient journey, even if you just want to buy like an easy product, it's super complex, right? You need to go to the doctor, you need to go to the prescription, need to get the prescription, you get the consultation, you get the product, you see what happens, you go to the doctor again, and so on and so forth. And obviously, this is not designed to be customer-centric first. And why is that? Because this is not how healthcare works, right? Healthcare mainly has been built around the healthcare ecosystem and not about the patient. And this is what we see happening here now. Companies who really put the pain point of patients, which is apparently super important in healthcare-related topics, truly first, and then design actually the full patient journey from diagnostics, from therapeutics, from follow-on and monitoring and reporting around it, while leveraging multimodal therapies. So yes, it has telemedicine components. Yes, it also has digital therapeutic components, but it also includes classical drugs and the important logistics of sending you actual drugs and products. It also offers week-like programs to follow up, for example, and make sure that you really do adhere to your treatment and gets feedback all the time, right? And just compare it when you usually go to the doctor with a longer topic, and how does it work, right? You go there, and then after you get a treatment if you're lucky, and then, you know, typically you come back after a couple of months and the doctor asks, how is it? But this is not how it ideally works, right? And the nice thing is that if you compare this VIMPRO type of approach with the key or currently predominant approaches like telemedicine, digital therapeutics, or e-pharmacies, you see that here, all these existing models do have significant challenges, right? Margins in telemedicine, like the adoption and go-to-market for digital therapeutics, or like the retention and adherence for e-pharmacy. The VIMPRO model or these micro providers actually address all these points and offer a superior product, yet a very complex one, because you need to address all these elements. And just company performance wise, it's really interesting, right? There is really cool examples. This can get really fast, really big. And if you just look at Cerebral, which is down here, which is essentially, as I would put it, a VIMPRO in the mental health space, I think they have been now the fastest health tech in the unicorn, health tech unicorn in the world ever. So within, I don't know, 2 years or 3 years, they became a 1.5 billion medical grade company, right? So they offer serious treatment with SSRIs, prescription drugs for people with mental health problems. And yes, the US is usually a little bit more advanced, but if you look here at Europe, and that is what you see in the middle and also in the right, this is ramping up and more companies are being founded. And if you look at the first year revenues, like just comparing that to Hims and Hers, who just did I think an IPO via a SPAC, the KPIs itself are not worse in terms of recurring revenue, gross margins, NPS, so everything is in place. So we are super bullish that a similar development like in the US will come. Having said this, there's quite a few things that probably these consumerized healthcare / VIMPRO approaches is not necessarily fit for all areas, but for particular ones, those which have a significant patient point, which is bigger than the provider point. So where there are misaligned incentives, for example, talking about skincare, acne is something which is very often, you know, a huge personal pain point for everybody out there. But people not necessarily consider them sick, and it's not always easy to get an appointment with a dermatologist quickly. And then also often the dermatologist thinks, you know, there's bigger problems in the world than acne. So it's treated so, right? But actually, it's something which oftentimes can be treated very effectively. And that's the second point, right? There should be a actually treatment available. Otherwise, you end up being a consumer for company selling snake oil, and that is probably not sustainable. Yeah? And that offers the opportunity to say, if you have this treatment, how can you also cross-sell add-ons or alternative margin-wise strong products? Yeah? But all in all, there is huge opportunities. And for example, I encourage you to look at Get Cerebral, the US company is really impressive. LGBTQ plus from London, Troglo, early on company, very, very interesting how they built the company. Skill Health, I think every country now has a top contender. And there's obviously also the horizontal platforms like Thriva, 30 Medicine in the US / Canada, or in Germany, there's Weiss, who just announced a really cool funding round. Yeah? Having said this, so I'm super excited, but having said this, it's non-obvious and complex, right? And this is a little bit the challenges with these products. It's operationally super complex to set up. You need to cover everything, yeah, from diagnostics to e-commerce to logistics to medical grade programs, applications. It's a really complex product because essentially you're putting 2 or 3 different companies into one. There are significant regulatory hurdles, particularly when you're going into the area of prescription topics. And, you know, product design is super important. Yes, it's true. Many healthcare products don't have really great product design at the moment, but it really needs to stand out to consider so many, you know, different aspects and not just to be a super nice app, but so many different topics that really, and that is the point at the lower right hand, you really need a complex, heterogeneous team to make this happen and to make this successful. And that is why we believe for everybody who's interested in the topic, it's probably one of the biggest opportunities out there. But you really need strong teams, strong support, a great ecosystem. And I guess it's worthwhile looking into this for everybody who's interested in the healthcare sector. Yeah, and that's pretty much it. What we're here at Heal Capital. I hope that was somewhat interesting and maybe helpful for you guys. I wish you lots of fun with the rest of the program. And thank you, Kaan, and also Tamas, for the opportunity to share our pet topic here in this circle. It was a pleasure to do so.
I mean, thank you very much, because Vim structure is everything, because even from the early days of technology and startups disrupting industries, this is what we see, right? I mean, when PayPal comes up, you don't say that it's a bank, but they just try to focus on one small problem on a huge market, which is like in healthcare is the same. You have radiology, you have diagnostics, you have the prescription, you have the wellness of it. So there is a huge value chain, which most of the startups cannot tackle by themselves yet. When the time comes, it's really, we will see that. So we've seen a lot of changes in highly regulated industries, and I have no doubts about changing world of healthcare. I mean, for your perspective and trying to set up a community, I really like it. And I would be happy to send our other healthcare partners and startups to be in around your community, because this is how you deliver value. Otherwise, it's a little bit complicated than trying to solve it just one person, right?
Absolutely. So everybody feel free to reach out via LinkedIn or any other channel or one of the usual channels. I'm happy to include there in future discussions if that is a topic of interest.
Perfect. I mean, if you will have any more questions, Christian, that might be over there. I think somebody also asked, so let me just check. So what do you see as the largest revenue drivers for VIMPROs? Do you see any VIMPROs emerging in neurogenerative space?
Good question. So I guess I would differentiate between revenue driver and margin driver, right? If you just want to go for revenue, you just go for the classical telemedicine approach. And I guess this is potentially the revenue driver. But the key challenge is often these margins. So I guess the trick is that you exactly say, listen, I do not only do the telemedicine part and essentially open up the huge profit or EBIT pool to big pharma, because this is what usually happens, right? You do a relatively cheap telemedicine call, which gives you usually 30 euros or something, and then thousands and tens of thousands of revenues and profit is made by the rest of the healthcare system. So I guess here the revenue driver is for me to really find something where you can say, no, I keep the patient and I can offer something which I, for example, can do some white label production or offer some OTC type of products and really sell. This is the high margin products where you then actually can really earn serious money with. So think of, for example, acne treatment. We've had this example. Companies in that space, they usually say, we go to a producer of acne treatment, which is typically antibiotics, and that you can actually have them produce for you, white label, your own antibiotic skincare, like with then huge 50-60% EBITDAR margins. And that is where it becomes interesting. And ideally, of course, particularly for these cases like acne or similar ones, you want to go then for the subscription, because this is something where typically you have like longer period of time where this applies. Yeah. For the second part, neurodegenerative space, tough one, huh? Super tough one. I guess there's so many snake oil companies out there, but let's leave them out of the solution space for the point in time. I think, there is the question is, what is treatment, what is effect and what is cause? And I guess in the neurodegenerative space, if you think Alzheimer's and the like, there is so much we don't know yet, right? Eventually, if you really want to offer that, one of the things I mentioned is you need an effective treatment. And since we don't have that, and I mean, the first drug ever now, aducanumab, yeah, this is serious stuff. Yeah, this is nothing which you probably want to buy and treat via the next app and online store. So when it's really for life-threatening topics and where the ideal treatment is not yet clear, maybe it's not yet the time, but something for the future to go digital first. Yeah. So I guess for me, neurodegenerative space, there's some other very interesting, promising topics to be developed. Not yet the first consumer first product, if you ask me. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it will require a lot of research as well, and the solutions are not that cheap as well. I mean, technology let us make sure that solutions are getting cheaper and cheaper, but still we are not there yet, I guess.
There's one example, for example, if you think Alzheimer, one of the many topics which are suspected to lead to Alzheimer's disease is, for example, for our female population, relatively serious cases or relative serious hormonal developments during the menopause. Yeah. Having said this, I can see a great consumer-first VIMPRO for menopause, because this is such a complex multimodal therapy topic where you might, an actual treatment, if you want to put it this way, in classical healthcare is not really apparent. So this might be an option to say, why don't we build something around menopause, eventually then also leading to a, well, reduction of subsequent topics or developments like Alzheimer's disease, but I would not call that a neurodegenerative consumer-first company.
Right. I mean, thank you very much, really. I mean, I'm sure that our guests are also going to check Hill Capital. So thanks for sharing your time with us. Maybe we will see soon each other with the development, maybe some of your portfolio companies as well to celebrate it. Thank you, Christian.
Thank you.
See you.